好，OK， 非常高兴大家今天又回到我们的现场。那今天是我们那个Gala Weekend Fallen 的第2天。那我们第一场 session 呢，很高兴邀请到那个 Voxel Agent 的创意总监 Simon Justin 先生来这边跟大家分享他们在自己的工作室的内部在进行游戏设计的时候遇到的一些问题。然后还有他们在开发，他会用2款游戏来做介绍，一款就是他们比较知名的作品《Train Conductor》，那用《Train Conductor World》这个开发过程跟大家介绍他们在游戏设计上的一些心路历程。那另外就是说，面对2种不同类型的游戏设计的时候，那如何在里面找到平衡？那他会再另外介绍他这一次在展场里面有展出的《Gardens Between》这个作品的设计。好，那我们现在掌声欢迎他。
Ni hao. Hi, I'm Simon Jocelyn. Are we getting this on screen?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I'm co-founder of the Voxel Agents. We're from Melbourne, Australia.
他是在那个墨尔本，就是澳洲墨尔本的 Vox Agent 的创意总监，他非常高兴来到台湾。
We're a small team of about 7 people. My co-founders were there with me at the front, and we have the rest of the team at the back. We aim to make games that unravel in surprising ways. They're meant to be welcoming and open to a very broad audience.
OK， 那刚刚可以看到他那边就是那张照片，他们公司里面有大概7个人，然后前面2位就是另外一个就是他的共同创办人。那他们有一个目标就是跟上面各位看到的这个 sentence 是一样。好，他们就是希望能够创造一些让人家觉得惊奇，或者说给你与众不同感觉的一些游戏。
So we got started in 2009, and we've made a few Train Conductor games and Puzzle Retreat. I'm going to talk about Train Conductor World and the Gardens Between today, as been mentioned. I'm going to focus on those 2 as a case study.
OK， 那他们公司创立于那个2009年。那现在看到就是他们公司在这段时间开发过的作品。其实有一些游戏，我相信可能在座有人有玩过。那他就是跟刚刚我介绍一样，他会用下面那2款，就是 Train Conductor 跟 The Gardens Between 来做 case study 介绍。
So when we tend to see each other's games and we play each other's games, we see them in a finished format, and they're very beautiful. They're very simple. Most of the problems have been resolved, and it's very easy to assume that somebody has just solved it straight away, and they're a genius, and they've nailed it. And I think we don't share enough of the mistakes that we make, and all the hardship, and all the dead ends that we go down when making a game, because we spend about 2 years making our games, and what we finish with is very simple, but actually there's so much work that we do that we throw away.
OK， 那我想大家都有一个感觉说，你在看到一些游戏成品的时候，你会觉得哇，这游戏你看到都是最好的一面，因为它已经推出在你眼前。那你可能会想说啊，能够设计出这样游戏的人，应该都是些天才吧？他们一定都知道解决问题的方法。那今天主要是跟大家讲，他要跟大家分享的就是，实际上在最后大家呈现在世人面前的游戏的背后，其实他们也是经过一些很困难的摸索，甚至有一些死胡同。那主要就是要呈现出这一面给大家。
And for me, while making Train Conductor, I experienced a lot of anguish and depression, sadness, thinking that I had no idea what I was doing. And I think this is really common in a lot of game developers, but it's not often discussed that we all struggle to find the right path. And I think that it's important to share what goes wrong, so we all understand we're all struggling together trying to make something amazing, and it's not easy.
OK， 那这张图片就是显示说，他只要是跟大家讲说，其实大家开始制作那个 Train Conductor 的时候，其实他后来花了2年的时间。那这2年之间，其实他经历了很多很挫折或是一些痛苦的阶段这样。那主要就是要跟大家分享说，在这个过程当中的这个摸索的状况这样。
So yeah, we throw away most of our work. Most of the time that we're developing a game, most of that gets chucked away.
他刚刚有其实刚刚他有提到，就是他在这2年过程中，他就是一直把做完的东西丢掉，做完的东西丢掉这样。
Largely because game design is very difficult, and I want to talk about how it's difficult and also how we are trying to improve as a team.
好，就是说，基本上设计是非常困难的事情。那另外，他也是要跟大家讲说，在这个过程当中，他们如何去进步，如何克服。
First, I'm going to talk about Train Conductor World as a case study.
OK， 首先跟大家介绍 Train Conductor。
If you haven't seen it, this is the game.
OK， 如果你还没有玩过的话，你可以透过这个 video 来了解这个游戏。
So when we started, the main goal for us, we feel that this game should be free, and so we were setting out to create a free-to-play game to begin with, and we wanted to make sure that the core action that you do in the game of connecting the trains directly linked to your sense of progress and getting somewhere in the game.
Sorry, the last sentence.
So the connecting the trains,
Yeah.
we wanted to make sure that was very clearly linked to getting progress, moving forward in the game towards the end goal.
OK，so 他说，那这个游戏一开始的时候，因为他说他这个是一个免费游戏，那它里面当初的想法就是说，确定它这个游戏就是把你的 train link 起来，然后那你可以看到跟刚刚的 video 一样啊，其实它是让你看到的是最后的阶段，但他等一下会跟大家展示，就是一开始他们的一个想法跟后来有点出入这样子。
We wanted to make sure that it was very clear. Each step you took was very obvious that you were getting towards the end goal.
Sorry.
Every step
Yeah.
along the way was very obvious, and you could see how far you were going.
Okay. You mean the design process? Every step.
Oh, as a player.
As player. 你来补充一下 ，sorry。
没有，就是那个 Simon 的意思是说，他想要在游戏里面呈现到这个每一个关卡的过程呢，玩家操作的过程都是非常清楚干净，然后玩家可以很明确的感受到他在每一个动作都是有一个很大的，就是玩家自己的就是对游戏的进程是有推进的。
好，对，感谢 Johnson， 这是我今天找他来的原因。好，不好意思，因为昨天实在没有睡够。
And we wanted to make sure that end goal was a long way away.
Yeah.
And we wanted to make sure there were many reasons to return to the game and come back often.
就是说you mean the player back to the game?
Yeah.
好，没有，再救援一下，没有，就是因为刚刚说到，就是要让玩家每一个动作都很清楚自己的进程，但是他又很希望那个最终的目标是非常遥远的，所以玩家可以就是花很多时间去玩，然后慢慢爬这个就是慢慢进步的坡，然后玩家还有很多的理由可以一直回来玩他的游戏。
我们要不要劝举一下？好，那这样。
We were aiming to make it so that you could get a small step of progress. You could come back and you could take a step forward in as short as 30 seconds.
You mean this is the process the players should do in the game?
Yeah.
3 minutes session, and so what's the 30 second?
As short as 30 seconds. In 30 seconds, I can take a step.
OK， 所以它每一段就是30秒，然后但是以3分钟为一个 session， 为一个进程，这样子的方式来设计。OK。
So to begin with, we spent some design just figuring it out on paper.
OK， 他们就是一开始就是利用 paper prototype 的方式来把一些功能把它表现出来。
This is Matt and I trying to come up with ideas. In 2 days, we would sit together and we would come up with a design and then put it in front of the other person and they would play that design. You would be the game master with your idea and you would put it in front and they would play it. So Matt would play my idea and then we would give feedback, and then do that again. And over a 2-day period, we came up with tons of ideas.
So 他们就是一开始就是每个人都把自己 idea 去用 paper 的方式去做出来，那他们会彼此交换意见，所以他们在2周里面就把原型弄出来了。那在这过程中，其实就是一直去测试对方的东西，然后互相交换意见，给 feedback。
So one of the ideas or an inspiration for us was Sid Meier's Railroads, the game by Sid Meier. Have you heard of that game?
What?
A famous game was our example called Railroads.
Oh, so the reference is the game.
Yeah.
Okay, it's the Rail War.
Yeah.
Rail Wars. Yeah.
Steve
Meyer 的，对 Steve Meyer。Sorry， 那是一个桌游啦 ，Steve Meyer 的 Rail War。他们用那个当做基本参考来设计。
And the cool idea that we came up with was this idea that you would be able to buy train track pieces, and then for every piece that you got, it would go into your collection, and you could use that piece to build your own rail network.
OK， 那就跟各位看到一样，其实就是从一些他设计好的铁轨，然后出来去连接这个起点终点，然后把你的铁道建出来。
We would get friends to play our game, and they would actually play Train Conductor 1 from 2009, and we would get their score from the game, and we would use that to work out how many coins they had earned in the game.
So 就是他们找了一些朋友来测试，那这些人有曾经玩过他们的1代，对，那他们在这个设计的时候，他们后来在这个版本里面就是有加入了一些筹码的概念在里面，就应该是说金币啊，或是说你的收入这样。
We would put that into a spreadsheet that would tell them how much money they had. They could use the money to then buy more tiles.
OK， 所以他有做了一个 sheet， 这个 sheet 就刚刚看到的表单，那表单可以记录你现在赚了多少钱，然后你有钱，你可以再去买更多的铁轨。
Now we sat there and we thought this is good, but it needs a lot more.
他觉得这个 idea 不错，可是好像还少了些什么，所以需要更多的设计。
And this is the beginning of us making about 12 months of mistakes.
OK， 那就因为这个想法，所以后来造成了整个长达1年的一个错误的设计，这样子。
To begin with, we thought we need to make it so that the player can invest in their trains and put more cargo on the train and earn more money.
OK， 他就是说后来他们想到就是说啊，那我们不要只有铁轨啦，我们就是让玩家可以自己去增加这个列车的长度，所以可以在那个火车头后面去拖非常多的车厢，就 cargo 哈，运送货物，那你就可以赚钱。
Then we made that a lot more detailed. You could change lots of different stats about the train, so you could make it faster, make it brake quicker, add more cargo, make it longer.
所以你可以看到它设定了非常多的参数，就是说你可以去调整这个你的火车，好，然后你可以用很多方式去升级，好，然后再用 cargo 来赚钱这样子。
And we were insane, and we made it more difficult again and more complex.
所以你可以看到，就是越设计越复杂，就是加了很多功能这样。
We had a spreadsheet to figure out the balance of how much they cost, how much they added for each upgrade. It was insane.
OK， 他说，那后来他们就陷入到一直去调整这个平衡，就说他的收入跟花出去的成本，那如何在游戏中达到平衡？那你就看到就产生了这样的很多很疯狂的图表。
It was too complex. It didn't work.
所以他说，他觉得这是太复杂，根本就行不通的。
And players were confused whether they should spend their money on upgrading the train or whether they should buy tiles and expand on the map.
OK， 就是说，到底是应该玩家就会陷入一个迷失，一个困惑中，到底是应该升级我的火车呢，还是说我应该赶快投资在我的 map 上面去买铁轨
At this point, we'd spent 5 months already making the game.
？OK， 那到这为止已经经过5个月了。
We realized that the best part of the game was the tiles and building the map.
OK， 他们后来就确定说，重新再审视一下，然后说啊，最重要的其实就是在 map 上面去买这个铁轨，好，这是最重要的功能。
So we focused on that. We built that as a digital prototype. The player could get the tiles and build their map. To build over forest or water cost more coins.
OK， 那所以他后来就做了一个digital的版本，就是这个数位版。那玩家基本上就是可以去花费他们的钱，然后去建造铁轨，让它变得连接的更远，更大这样子。
And we added a system where the player could send cargo across the network. They could move cargo from F to A. These are different cities. So F is a city, B is a city, and A is a city. And they could move cargo between them.
OK， 那你可以把那个就是运送你的那个货物啦，就是运送货物到另外一个城市，比如说 F 到 A 这样子。那在里面你就会获得奖励，那其实就是你赚得的金钱。好，就像这个样子。那每完成一个运送，他就把它消掉，这样。
Big problem here was if a delivery took 3 hours to send, then why could the train magically jump from where it finished to start the next delivery?
OK， 你刚才可以看到，它其实安排了很多那个运送的 schedule 嘛。那它里面遇到一个怪怪的问题，就是当你比如说从 F 城市送到 A 城市，那你下一个起点是 B 城市，那火车突然就会跳到 B 城市出现，这个在现实的状态中是不太可能发生的。
And the player didn't have many motivations to continue to build a bigger network.
就是到底要怎么样让，就是说你的玩家有那个动机，或是他被鼓励不断的去建造这个更大的这个铁路网络连接。
And also the balance was flawed. The easiest way to get progress was to just send the freight or send the cargo, and you'd earn lots of money really quick, and you never actually played the game and connected the trains.
OK， 那就后来变成说，玩家就会只用这个 delivery 来赚钱，那他就不会专注在说他去建立这个铁轨的连接上面。他就发现是目前现在出现的问题是这样子。
At this point, we're at 9 months.
那到这边为止又过了9个月。
So we fixed the magic train by making it stay where it finished. Now you could send it onwards. So if you send from A to D, then at D you would choose where to go next. At each location, you always choose where to go next.
OK， 所以你看到他们后来修改的就是你从 A 到，就等于说每一个下一个的是另外一个的起点这样子。
And to solve why you would care about building a big network, we gave the player objectives to try and achieve every day. So get a score here, connect this city, deliver so much cargo.
所以要给这些玩家一些成就目标去达成，那可以就是算是鼓励他们去建造更大的这个铁路连接网。
Players were very confused why. Okay. So I have to explain. When you play a city and there is cargo, you earn a lot more money.
Yeah.
If you play the city and there is no cargo, you don't earn as much money.
Yeah.
And players didn't understand the difference.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So 就是说如果说你运送过去，那你是有 cargo 的，就是有货物的，那你可以赚钱。那但是如果说你到一个城市，然后是没有货物的，那是没有办法赚钱的，那你就只能赚一点点钱，等于说那个钱就不多这样。那玩家他后来发现有些玩家比较困惑说，就是有载货跟没有载货这个地方，玩家在赚钱上面的认知是会有一点点困惑。
So we made that more clear. Instead of delivering red boxes that didn't have any meaning, it meant you were delivering pianos. So on the back of the train, the cargo was a very specific object. It was a piano, or it was a cat, or it was a car.
OK， 所以他们现在就把它改成是 你那个货物是真的有看到，而不是只是一个车厢这样子。那所以这边的话，那他们加了这个部分之后，他就把这个问题修正的比较清楚。
And also, all the cargo would come from one place. This was a port, so all the cargo would originate from here.
OK， 那你现在看到的这是一个 port， 就有点像是一个就是卸货载货的平台。那在这个地方的话，你可以看到所有的 cargo 都是来自于这个地方，就是你的货物。
At this point, we're at 13 months, and we were thinking this is pretty good. We had good reasons for the player to return. They had to expand across the whole map. So they had a long-term goal to achieve. We had basically met all our requirements for what we were trying to build in the game.
OK， 那到这个阶段呢，那已经到了13周了嘛，13个月。然后那他们觉得说，到目前这个阶段好像有达成当初他们希望的目标，就是玩家是慢慢的推进，然后呢是把这个 network 专注在这个铁轨建设上，然后慢慢的这个进程是符合他们当初的期待这样。
We knew there were some problems, but we were basically ignoring them because we wanted to finish the game.
就是说他们其实有遗留了一个问题没有处理，那所以呢那但是他们其实还没有完成这个游戏这样。
We
sorry。好 ，OK， 就是说他有一个，因为他们要发售游戏，但是他们有遇到一个问题，但是他们急着要发售，然后就把那个问题给忽略掉，这样没有去处理它。
We sent the game to Yoda One. This is a great team that gave us a lot of excellent feedback. Their feedback was the game is too complex. It's too hard. In particular, to buy track tiles in the game, you had to save up a lot of coin. That took a very, very long time to save up that much coin, and they said that players would quit because it would take too long to save that many coins.
To save the coin. 就是他们有找了一个发行商，就刚刚有看到，应该是中国那边发行商。那他给了很多 feedback， 那他说在这个铁轨的设计的购买上，他说是太过复杂。那这个地方的话，因为玩家需要存很多钱，然后来购买铁轨。
And they were right. We removed that and we made it much simpler. The player would deliver the trains, and they would collect cargo. If they had enough coins, it would automatically buy them a tile.
OK， 就是你运送货物，然后它只要钱够了，它会自动去产生，自动去 So you don't need to buy the tile. They will automatically give you a tile. OK， 就是它会自动的给它铁轨。那像你看到有一些铁轨是比较特殊的铁轨，它可以连接很多方向，那个就是比较稀有的，所以它会自动的有点像抽奖这样子，抽乐这样，然后你达到了目标，钱累积到了，它就自动给你，这样就改成这样，你就不用再去一直计算说你要买什么，这样子。
Now, this is another example where I'm embarrassed to tell you this story about how we continue to make more and more mistakes. But I feel like this is important.
OK， 其实他今天分享这个，他觉得有一点点难为情，因为他刚刚讲的东西都是他们过程当中遇到了一些错误决策。那但是他觉得这很重要，所以希望能够分享给各位这样。
So we thought the cargo that you send on the network, when you send cargo from one city to another, we thought we will make that more interesting, and we just made it more complex. You could buy all kinds of different trains and upgrade them. And again, all the trains that you would send on the map had stats. And again, we were back to doing something very complex. We didn't spend much time on it, but again, every time we tried to make the game bigger, we just made it way too complex.
OK， 其实回到刚刚他说的问题，就是每一次他们想要让这个游戏更进阶的进一步往下去设计的时候，他就会让它变得更复杂。那大概是这些问题啊，sorry， 因为刚刚前面有讲到一些，他说什么，他刚才提到几个车子设计的。
就是他每次增加东西的时候，他都会在
OK， 那谢谢Johnson的解释，就是它有参数啦，那参数会让游戏变得更复杂，这样一次一次的更复杂。
Too complex. We were at 16 months. So we stripped everything back and it went back to as simple as possible.
OK， 所以他们又回来了，决定要把这个东西再做得更简单一点。
This is a picture of the final game. There are several cities on the map, and you want to connect to all the cities.
你会看到在地图上一开始就会有一些城市，那你没有办法去连接所有的城市。
Some of those cities are ports, like this one.
OK， 这每个 city 都是一个运载货的地方，就是一个 port， 就像这个样子。
When you connect you connect the port to your network, every city starts sending trains there to fill the port.
所以它就干脆就是你只要连接好城市，它就会自动去运送货物了，就是这样子。
And the port gets full of cargo automatically.
所以那你就会看到它这个城市运送过来的 cargo 会慢慢的增加，然后最后你再创造营收，你只要把这个 cargo 消耗掉，那它就转换成营收给你，就货柜啦，货柜就会消耗掉这样。
That might take a few hours to fill the port. And in the end, everything that we tried, we made way too complex and we threw away. The only things we kept were the absolute simplest ideas.
就是每一次他们做的更复杂，就会把它再丢弃。那最后他们发现，其实最好的方式就是让它变得非常简单。
So we persisted and we kept going. We resulted in the absolute simplest possible game. I think the big takeaway for me is all of the ideas that we came up with, we figured out in 2 days on paper. We didn't spend enough time refining those ideas to simplify them before we started making.
OK， 他们一开始就花了2周就把这个概念做出来了，但他们没有中途并没有花时间去想说如何让它变得更简单。
The game has been out since March. It has done well. It has about 25,000 daily actives. We're making about 2,000 a week at the moment.
这个是关于它上架之后的一些营收状况。
So we spent about 340,000 to make it, and in the first 5 months we've made about 370. So we would call it successful.
但他们觉得目前他们上架之后，他们认为这个应该算是成功的，就是对他们来说，这样子的销售状况是成功的。
The breakdown, I know like people like to know this information. So the breakdown is that most of the money comes from ads, although that's changing now. We now make more money from the in-app purchases than we do from the ads every day, with the changes that we've made in the game.
So you mean now the ads revenue is over in app purchase right now?
In total.
In total.
But right now, every day, we make more money in app purchase. Yeah.
Yeah， 就是如果整体来看啊，就是广告收入是大于 IAP， 那但是目前来说，最近就是IAP 的收入其实是超过广告的。
So I encourage you to learn from my mistakes of constantly making a game much too complex, and simpler is much better.
他说，从他的经验就是，你一开始可能会想得很大很复杂，那但是他说，从他的经验，他希望能够让大家体会到，就是有时候简单是最好的方式，这样。
I want to talk about the gardens between now, and I will again share many of the mistakes that we have made so far with this game.
OK， 那接下来就是另外一个 case study， 就是各位在会场上看到的这一款游戏。
We've been developing it for 2 years. It's had about 9 completely different prototypes.
好，他这边也是一样花了2年的时间在做这款游戏，那里面也产生了9个都是各自独立的一些 prototype， 就是它的原型，游戏原型都有一些各自独立的部分。
It started out as an idea of how do we make the film Minority Report with Tom Cruise. Do you know the film?
是哪一个游戏？关键报告。哦，关键报告。Yeah, yeah.
How do we turn that into a game? So you meet this alien character, and you can move backwards and forwards, and the alien finds that there is a dead bird.
OK， 所以你可以看到，你可以控制这个外星人。那他说他们这是从关键报告这个电影得到了一些启发。那你移动外星人，然后在树下发现一个那个就是已经死去的鸟。
If you meet other characters, you can speak to the other characters and find out what they know about what happened. We need to find out who killed the bird.
OK， 在过程中你会，因为它这个时间轴是可以移动的，所以你在这个移动到过去发现这个鸟的尸体的过程当中，你可以找到一些线索，然后去知道说到底是谁杀了这只鸟。
So we can click on the cyclist and find out what the cyclist knows. He doesn't know anything.
所以就是你这样 ，OK。所以so we can switch different character. OK. Two dogs.
Two dogs fighting. We see that the bird fell from above. Anyway, I'll leave it there. That's a teaser.
OK， 因为你可以看到这个每个角色的位置不一样嘛，所以说然后你能够观察的范围是有限的，所以它变成说你在切换不同角色的时候，你可以看到就是比如往前推几秒钟或者一些时间发生的事情，那透过不同角色的观察范围来得到，就像刚刚那样子。
The next idea was that you have this little scene, and you could watch what happens, and you need to find hidden stars. Hidden stars, like stars in the sky, that are hidden, hard to find.
Hard to find.
I'll show you.
What?
There.
Oh.
Is it?
OK.
One star.
就是有一个隐藏的星星，就是在过程当中你要去找那个，这是好难哦。就是在拉的过程中，你要去找到那个隐藏在画面里面的星星，它会出现。
There's another half star here, which you can follow the half of the star. And it becomes a full star. And there's a lot more stars.
So how many stars in the scene?
Maybe 6 or 7.
6 or 7?
I can't remember. And we liked the idea, but it needed to have more to it because how do you entertain a player for hours just looking for stars?
他说他们喜欢这个 idea， 只是说到底玩家会有多少耐心，在整个游戏里面就是一直在找这个 star。
What happens if you could change the future? So this little pink character will die. So you can reverse time and go backwards, and you can help the character by building a bridge.
Oh, yeah.
And now they can walk across. But they're still going to fall off the end.
So
you can go back and help them again and build the wall. And you win.
OK.
And we really liked the idea, but also weren't sure what to do with it. It wasn't until we had the inspiration to make it about a few different characters that combines quite a few of these ideas into one. So you can move backwards and forwards. You can move forwards to change time. You're going to meet Little Red Riding Hood, the wolf and the granny. And you need to find these items in the environment. So there's a Little Red Riding Hood coming into town, and she meets a few characters.
Mm-hmm.
She goes out of town. Now you need to find the objects in the top right.
OK.
Yep.
就是这应该，我想大家应该都还蛮容易理解，就是因为看这个 demo 的话，就可以知道它是要玩家也是一样是找东西啊，所以在这移动的过程当中，画面上会不断的变化，跟着这个时间轴来变化。那
What we really
你
wanted
要
to
找到它规定的物品。
What we really wanted to test was that you could see the storyline from different points of view, from different characters.
OK， 那一样就是他把前面几个 prototype 好的部分把它 combine 了，所以你可以发现这边你可以透过不同角色的切换来，你观察这个故事的视点就不一样。
That we made this as a test to test how we would tell a story with the different characters. We would never release this game, Little Red Riding Hood. We were always going to throw it away. We used Little Red Riding Hood because the story, everyone knows the story, and we could test it very easily without having to come up with a story.
OK， 那他为什么他这个其实他最后当然没有用这个小红帽这个当做游戏的内容嘛？那但是呢，他说他为什么这样做呢？因为用这个来做 test 的，来做测试的话，每个人都可以理解小红帽的故事，因为大家都听过，所以他就不用花费时间去解释他的故事。那他们只是要去测试说，这个透过不同角色观点，然后来解释故事的这个部分是否可行，这样，所以他选择了小红帽。
So this is the story of the big bad wolf. Big bad wolf comes into town.
哦，kick again.
And this is the story of the old granny. She's not feeling well.
嗯。哦。Get a go. 哎。
We can find more of these
so
things.
The turtle is kicked by the wolf.
And what was really interesting that we liked in this idea was that you could change something very small. So she is cold, and she wants to warm up the room. So she goes outside, but she can't get into the basement.
Basement.
Yeah, this
Yeah, I know.
basement. Yeah, she can't get in. So you need to help her. But that little bird. Wait, I'll get rid of this.
Oh, the little bird give the key.
The bird takes the key. So you can change something very small just by tapping on the bird, and you can keep the key. And now you can get in.
OK， 就奶奶因为她要去拿柴火，那柴火在地下室，那因为她很冷，她可能感冒了，然后她要去生火。那你为了拿到那个柴火，因为地下室锁起来了，那后来发现这个钥匙在鸟身上，那所以你在互动的过程中，除了调整时间轴之外，你还可以点选物件。那所以后来你点选鸟，那它就会把钥匙遗落在地上，那你就可以去开门了。
So we really liked this idea. And we decided to start making a game based on this, and we came up with our own story at that point.
OK， 他们觉得这个 idea 不错，那所以他们就是决定换成自己原创的故事。
And we have two characters, Arena and Fred, and they have different abilities.
那他们有两个角色有不同的能力，那一个人 Arena， 一个是 Fred。
So this is the first version, similar to what is outside. At this point, we just have the two characters, and they get stuck here. They can't go past, but you can go back to get the fire, and you can change the future again.
你在一样好，就是在画面上左右的滑动就可以调整时间轴。那你可以发现主角在攀登的过程当中被一片石墙卡住了。那这时候他必须利用后面那个角色身上的火炬，因为他还没有点燃，所以要到旁边的火把上面去点燃你自己身上的那把火炬，那就可以通过这个阻挡你的墙。
Also, the player gets stuck at these omens, and they need to figure out what the answer is.
OK， 那这边就是也是会有一些阻挡你的，那你必须去输入像密码一样的东西，对。
They need to observe.
那一样是，sorry， 一样是从画面上去找答案。
So, they're looking for these symbols, and you can see one of the symbols there in the bottom corner.
所以你可以结合那个从视角上面去结合，然后你就知道那个到底是哪一个才是解开这个结界的那个 symbol， 那个 symbol 就是它的符号到底是哪一个。
And there's a symbol here that they're standing next to, and there's also one at the start you can see off in the distance in the far corner.
Oh yeah.
And now they know the three symbols because they have dots above them. Water. They can get past. Now, we liked a lot of ideas here, but we felt there was still a lot we could improve. We didn't like how the symbols felt very different to the world. They weren't part of the world.
他们喜欢这个 idea， 但是他们也发现好像有一些可以改善的地方。那他们发现这些 symbol 好像不属于这个世界，他们是跟这个世界是分离的。
So in the next version, we tried integrating a lot of those kind of puzzles. These are kind of like what we call code puzzles. They're about observing the environment and inputting the answer, saying you understand what is happening in the environment. So we tried to bring them more inside the world. And that is the result that is in the expo that we got to.
So 就是后来你可以看到在会场这个版本就是他们修正过的版本，就是你刚刚看到他去解谜的那个符号，他觉得是好像跟这个世界本身是脱离的，就是你是硬去把它加进去。那他后来就是把它改成，就是你是去理解了在这个世界里面的一些行为之后，然后才去决定你这个地方的通关密语是什么。
So we didn't like that the animations look very cheap. The characters slide across the ground. So we wanted to rebuild that.
他们觉得还有一个问题，就是目前这个角色好像在画面上滑行，他们不是很喜欢这样子的效果的感觉，所以他们就重新做了，就重新 build 了一个版本。
We also realized that many of the puzzles were very, very strange and hard for the player to realize. Most people that we put this game in front of really struggled with this puzzle in particular here because it was very difficult for players to understand what they could do.
Yeah， 就是然后再来就是比如说像这举个例子，从上面掉下来这个树枝其实是需要点燃的，那等于说要先点那个在道路上的那根立起来的树枝，然后再把上面掉下来的树枝点燃。这样你才有办法去点燃后，才不会被才有办法说去不被这个瀑布浇熄你的火把。那这里他认为这个地方的设计，就是说他后来发现这个版本里面有一些设计也是对于玩家来说太过困难了。那还有一些东西就是他会说的所谓的硬加进去的，好，就是也不大容易发觉。像这个地方很多人都卡住了。
Since that version, we have been focusing on making it more obvious what the player can do at any one stage by giving each character very specific abilities, and therefore the player knows that with those abilities they can do certain things, and making that clearer.
所以他们决定给角色不同的能力，那这样子的话，玩家在进行关卡的时候可以很确实的知道说啊，我在这里需要怎么样切换才能够通过这边的那个 谜题。
We also didn't like that when the player finished a puzzle, they could magically go from one place to the next, and there was no reason why they had suddenly left the top of one mountain and appeared at the bottom of the next.
然后还有一个问题就是他们在通关之后，玩家会不会传送到其他的地点嘛？那但是他就是说，里面他觉得比较奇怪的地方，说玩家，比如说有时候他爬到山上去，然后下一个地方却是在一个很低的海平面下面开始，他觉得这个部分也是有一些问题。
And every single puzzle in this game is made by hand and is absolutely unique. So we don't reuse any of the puzzles again, and it's very expensive. And if we want to change anything, for example, when we wanted to use IK animation, we had to rebuild the whole thing. So we threw out this entire game.
OK， 那他们又做了一件事情，就是因为他们就说目前的这个设计哈，他们里面已经会加了很多针对这个关卡呈现出来的地形或是那种样子而需要的一些谜题。那这些谜题都太过独特，等于说是针对每一个场景去做客制化。那这个非常耗成本，因为它每个场景都要独立去做一些谜题，那没有办法重复使用一些物件。那所以他们后来决定把这个目前各位看到的展示版本就整个打掉，准备要打掉重练了。对，应该说现在正在进行当中。
And part of the problem is that every puzzle is unique, and we didn't have a common language, an easy way to communicate how each puzzle was designed. Every puzzle was specified in a spreadsheet like this with very complex language that only the person who wrote the puzzle could understand what the puzzle meant.
OK， 那主要是他们团队在沟通这个事情的时候，比如大家在设计这个谜题的时候，没有一个共同语言来设计，那变成说每一个人对于这个谜题的想法，他们就要解释很多，说这里是怎么样怎么样，因为没有办法重复利用，所以就造成一些沟通上的成本。
Because we hadn't discovered a way to communicate our puzzles to each other and explain them before we made them, we couldn't test them with each other very easily. So they were very expensive tests every time.
OK， 因为他们一定要确认说大家都理解这个设计了，然后才下去做测试，因为他们认为每一次做测试其实都是一种很昂贵的成本，所以他们才需要能够有沟通的语言这样。
So we came up with, this is only about 3 weeks ago, we came up with a common language for explaining our puzzles and a few elements that we could reuse in every puzzle.
OK， 那他们就是在3周前去设计了这些所谓的共同语言。那他们在设计他们的关卡的谜题的时候，会用这些标记来达到沟通。那这些都代表了一些谜题的处理方式。那放在它的关卡设计图里面，大家就会很容易理解，很好沟通这样子。
Since then, we have come up with many, many puzzles, and we are more able to play each other's puzzles because we can understand and read what they mean.
OK， 那这样子等于说每个人去设计关卡的时候，就都可以了解对方在讲什么了。
And we are just beginning to put those puzzles back into the game and beginning to test them actually inside the game.
那你就可以看到他们就是依照这样的设计图，在游戏里面去测试。
And this is a photo from Friday.
Friday， 这是礼拜五的时候，礼拜五他还在澳洲。那礼拜五的时候他们拍的，好，就热腾腾的。
So we have worked on the game for 2 years, and this is all we have to show for it right now.
大家看到的就是那个是2年前，就是2年的努力成果在外面。那现在你看到的是最新的整个打掉重练的状况。
But this is the only thing inside the game that we have to show for it. We have a lot of knowledge in our heads, understanding what works, what does not work. We have discovered what our story is. We know what our characters can do. We have put this game in front of hundreds of people and learnt about what's working and what's not. And every step we take forward is getting faster and a lot better. So I have confidence we will get there. But I am sharing these stories because it is hard.
OK， 那他就是说，主要就是说这个像他刚才表达的这些东西，包括第一个 case 跟现在这个 case， 就是说，其实你一开始你在制作的过程当中，你并不晓得 你会有很多很困惑的地方，其实并没有说大家想象的，就是说他们很有经验，然后就可以做得一帆风顺。那这里面很多时候你必须去测试，然后从玩家里面找答案。那这边就是为什么他要把这些东西秀给大家看，就是他希望大家知道说这个过程其实是对他们来说现在应该是一个很 normal 的过程，就是坦白讲就是打掉重练是一个很 normal 的过程这样。
So common things that happen for us, the mistakes we make very often. We start building the game because it's exciting and motivating to make the game in the engine and see it as quickly as possible, but we do it before we have a very good plan.
OK， 就是说他们每次要做之前就会觉得很兴奋这样，然后希望赶快在引擎里面看到它的成果。那可是实际上很多时候他们并不知道他们后面的规划是什么。
And a thing that is very common is that the hardest part of the game to design, we will often say we don't know what we're going to do with that, and we ignore it and we tackle easier things because it's easier. And I think we need to learn as developers to tackle the hardest problem in our game because it is always going to be the thorn that's in your side holding you back.
就是说，其实，在开发过程中常常会有一个状况，就是他们会。就是在开发过程中，因为你会刻意去忽略掉一些最困难的问题，然后先去处理简单的问题。可是实际上这个东西它一直没有离开，那最后它还是会回来找你。
And often we know there's an issue, but we keep going anyway, and we are worried that throwing out work is a bad idea. But in the end, we throw out work all the time. So throw it out sooner, not later.
所以他说，因为建议各位就是在开发过程，如果你发现不好的话，你就赶快把它丢掉，不要留恋。因为像他们的情况，就是花了太多时间在各种各式样不同的设计上面，可是最后其实你可以看到最后的结果就是把它丢掉。所以他说，如果不好的就赶快丢，这样。
And I think it's very common that very obvious that you can see that most of the progress we are making is when we are working on paper. Paper is so quick to give you a result and be able to put it in front of somebody else. So I want to continue in my future as a designer using paper much more often. I think. I'll let you.
OK， 他主要是跟大家讲说，这个 paper prototype 的方式是一个非常好的方式。所以就像刚刚各位看到那些照片一样，就是透过纸笔，然后还有剪贴，那来测试你的游戏。那他愿意一直使用这样的方式，在他的这个游戏设计的生涯里面，他会非常鼓励大家用这种方式来制作。
I think with tools like Unity, it's very easy to make something so quickly, but you're ignoring the fact that you may not know exactly what you want to make yet. Like Unity makes it very easy to make a game, but the hardest thing is knowing what to make.
就是因为这句要怎么翻比较好？You don't know what to make.
对，就是有工具可以让你很快的做出东西没有错，但是你可能有时候根本
你根本不知道要做什么。
对，你根本你还不知道。
应该这样。对，应该这样翻。就是就像刚刚 Johnson 注释的，就是工具归工具，工具很棒，可是有时候你不知道你要做什么，这样。
I said this before, but the game design is not finished until you understand all the things that it affects, and so I encourage to go further with it. I think as well when you're doing tests to really be clear of exactly what you are testing and to only test that. It's very easy to get distracted by testing many things at once.
OK， 那最好是 focus 在你一次测试一个东西而已，对，就是不要一次好多东西一起测试这样。就像前面做的那个，你可以看到那个参数一大堆，那个很难测试这样。
And I imagine the summary of all of that is aiming to do the tests as quickly as possible.
所以就是说，基本上要让这个测试的过程，它是一个反复而且快速的、不断的 repeat 的过程，这样。
So, I share these stories with you all because we are all creative people making games together, and I like to share the ways we have gone wrong, so that you know that when you mistakes, you're not alone. I I would beat myself up about making mistakes over the last 2 years about the game that I was making. And I think it's, maybe you don't make mistakes, but I just wanted to put myself out there and share the fact that failure is very common and it's okay.
OK， 那一样啊，是再度重申说，在这边他分享他这边错误的经验，那也许对各位来说可以帮助大家之后不会犯这些错误。
Yeah, does anyone have any questions?
OK， 好，那他的演讲就到这边，那我们先掌声谢谢 Simon 这次精彩的演讲。那接下来有一些那个 Q&A 的时间，不晓得大家有没有什么问题想要提问 ？OK。
Hey.
Oh, there we go. I just wanted to ask you, you said you had worked on your first game, the first game you mentioned, for about 12 months. Was that a game that you were working on because you had money from other games and you were just ready to spend 12 months developing a game? How did you get to the point where you were ready to spend 12 months in development and not releasing? I'm just curious because I just quit my job because they wouldn't even spend like a month developing a new game. It was always about monetization. So I'm just wondering how you got to that point.
Did you want to translate that first, or you want me to answer? I can answer.
You can answer.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you're talking about Train Conductor World, the game that we spent 12 months on. Yeah. This is, I think, the 5th year that we had been around. So we did have money coming in from old games. But I guess the better way to answer your question is to go back to when we started, maybe. It was a very different time. I think we were very lucky that when we started, iPhone was just beginning in 2009. So that helped a lot. We were lucky in that regard. But we all quit our jobs and we went full-time for an entire year. And we put in a small amount of money each to be able to rent an office for the whole year. That was all the money we put in. And we didn't pay ourselves a cent. And we lived off like a minimum wage government support thing in Australia while we made the game. So we basically lived like students while we made our first game. And the first game, I think we made in about 6 weeks, and it was a complete failure. I think the only people that downloaded it were our friends. The second game was Train Conductor, which we probably spent about 4 or 5 months making. And that came out at the end of the year, just before we ran out of money. And we were fortunate enough that that did okay to then fund Train Conductor 2, and then that funded Puzzle Retreat. And we got a little bit of government funding at that point. And then, yeah, so it's a mix of things. It's hard to answer that question exactly. Yeah.
好，那个刚刚我跟 Johnson 讨论的结果是这段太长了，我们 skip， 请大家发挥自己的，因为我们2个都有点 miss 掉，所以抱歉。就是我们只能说他里面好像有提到他们有拿到一些政府的小补助，然后有去租了一间办公室来运作这样子。对啊，其他部分抱歉，我们俩都 miss 了，可能我们再回溯那个我们的录影，好不好？还是在座有谁可以帮忙？啊，如果没有的话，不然就看看有没有其他问题，好不好 ？OK。
你好，那我是想问说，在组建一个团队的过程中，团队成员之间难免都会有磨合或者吵架。那就是有很多事情必须要去决策，那中间难免会吵架嘛。那你们怎么解决这个问题？就是民主跟独裁之间，你要怎么做抉择？你要身为一个领导者，你要一肩扛起责任呢，还是你做的决定是大家一起来讨论，来一起解决这个问题？好，谢谢。
So the question is, how do you resolve conflicts between your teams? Do you go for a more autocracy approach or a more democracy approach? What is your idea about solving like different members have different ideas, and people may arguing with each other.
We do go for the more autocratic style. We have one person in charge of each area. So ultimately, the creative director or the lead game designer is in charge of bringing it all together. And they ultimately will make the majority of the decisions. But we do encourage everyone to bring ideas. We have someone in charge of the art direction for the Gardens Between, and they will make all the decisions about how it looks. And I think everyone brings good ideas to the creative director, but ultimately he has the final say in what is made in that game.
So just to make it more clear for me, it's like for art, let's say I just pick an aspect, like for art, everyone in your team can have some opinion about the art, but art director can have the final decision about art. And like the creative director have the final decision of everything.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
那就是这回答就是说，基本上他们的团队比较属于算是有分工，但是有独裁的部分，就是专长，每个人的专长当然各自都不一样。那游戏又是有很小的团队，大家就是互相讨论制作出来的。可是，在比如美术方面，最后还是由美术总监决定你的画面跟气氛应该长怎样子。那整个游戏的创意总监又有整个游戏所有面向的最后决定权，所以还是要最后那个一个人同意才能决定，就是还是要最后跳出来有人说 yes 这样做。但是过程中会一直讨论，然后会吸取大家的意见，这样。对，还有其他问题吗？
请问一下哦，那个在开发的过程中间哦，有时候遇到是好像这个游戏不是自己预想的，那一定要有所取舍，放弃了啊。那假如说像他的经验来讲，他放弃的时候，在什么情况之下，他会把整个游戏这个计划把它做放弃？有哪些条件？
Okay, so you obviously mentioned a lot of times you have to scrap your prototypes or your former iterations. But under what conditions will you actually say, okay, this is not going to work at all? You want to just scrap everything and restart again? What's your condition of deciding when is that condition met?
We like to have a set of goals or ideals at the start of the project. And if the ideas that we come up with and then prototype, they don't seem to match what we initially set out with, that's often a good reason why we would kill it. There are other reasons, like just you think it's going to be good and then it turns out it's not so great. And I think a lot of team communication there, meetings where we play the game as it is, we review it, and if we don't think that this can be turned into a finished game, then we sort of scrap or to talk about what to scrap and start again.
所以它有几个小面向。那第一个是说，如果他们一开始设定好的一个游戏制作的目标，或是游戏想要达到的目的，然后他们在设计原型跟讨论的过程之中，就做到一半，然后就发现说，其实这个东西好像永远不可能达到他要的那个目标。如果那个差距已经太远，那他就会当机立断，就会说好，这个已经不行，就会砍掉。那另外就是，如果就是他游戏在制作，或者说在那个测试一代的过程中，要很多人一起讨论，然后一起坐下来试玩。那也许试完的结果，大家各自会有各自不同的想法。但如果说普遍都感觉不太好的话，那可能就还是要下定决心说讨论说，看是要重做全部还是重做某一部分。那这个基本上是算是小组一起要有共识的决定。对，那有错误或者说跟当初预想差太远的话，那就当机立断就是要砍掉。
我再请问一下下一个问题，就是说，因为你们是一个团体作业嘛，哈，有各部门啊，各那分工的，那你在时间上的分配，怎么？就是说，你各部门有没有说，你这个针对你这个主题之后，有没有定一下时间完成的时间表？
So I think the question is, do you have a clear schedule in your team now? Not at all. 就是没有。不好意思，因为前面还有其他人有提问，不好意思。刚是那位前面灰衣服的先，不好意思。
Yeah, that's right.
Can you give me some suggestion for finding a good team member?
Are there communities that you can be part of, like for example this one, where you can meet a lot of people and find people that you understand very quickly, you understand each other very quickly, because communication between creative people is the most important aspect. So if you understand each other very fast, you can do the iteration of your ideas very fast. If you understand each other, and it takes a lot of effort to understand each other, you don't think on the same terms, it slows down everything. So I think the number one thing about finding the good people to work with is not, the most important thing is communication. Does that make sense? Yep.
需要翻译吗？需要，不用，好。
不好意思，那个你们的工作室是用那个 Unity 做主要开发工具的话，我想问一下那个对 Unity Ads 的意见是什么
？Unity 是什么
？Ads your student used the Unity for your main developing kit. What's your opinion about Unity Ads? The Unity Ad insert into your game that has ad servers.
They're our biggest source of revenue for ads, but we use a mediator. We use Supersonic, and we have maybe 7 different providers. But Unity Ads has generated the most cash, so the mediator has focused on Unity Ads because it earns the best for us.
So may I ask, what would you suggest to use it to its max capacity? What do you
I would suggest, well, from our experience, we're not very good at managing the mathematics of it, so we rely upon the mediator. We use a third-party service. So, Supersonic is the one we use.
Thank you.
We have, just to answer that further, we have tried having deals with different providers for ads, but they never work out as good as the mediation. The deals, maybe you can get better deals than us, but in the end, the mediation is always the best solution that we found. We have tried experimenting with different providers and going exclusively with one for a period of time because they promise a very good rate, but it never pays as much as the mediation. That's been our experience.
好，不知道还有没有其他的问题？
谢谢 Johnson 的助权，谢谢大家。那个不好意思，今天的那个翻译有一点那个就是头昏脑胀这样。那 OK， 那如果大家都没有问题的话，我们再次掌声谢谢 Simon。Thank you very much 。OK， 那我们接下来会应该是我们现在会有一个休息时间嘛？对，那。待会我们会有另外那个，就是我们也是这一次展出的副军委，然后就是展出《Roll Turtle》这个作品的作者，他会在这边跟大家分享他的一些开发心路历程。那欢迎大家再回到我们这个 session 的现场。